The silent identity Sigma males carry is not loud, not obvious, and not something the world easily understands, but it is the very thing that separates them from every other man. While others chase validation, Sigma males move through life with a calm independence that feels almost untouchable. They don't compete, they don't perform, and they don't try to fit the expectations placed on them. Instead, they build their own path quietly, shaping themselves in the shadows where pressure cannot reach them. This mystery, this refusal to be defined by anyone, becomes their greatest source of power, and the world feels it long before it realizes what it's dealing with. Most people never see the internal journey behind this identity. They don't see the years of observing rather than reacting, the choice to stand alone rather than stand with the wrong crowd, the strength it takes to walk away from noise, drama, ego, and superficial connection. Sigma males grow in silence, sharpen in solitude, and rise in moments no one expects. Their confidence doesn't come from approval, it comes from self-mastery. Their presence doesn't come from force, it comes from depth. And by the time others notice the shift, the Sigma has already evolved into someone stronger, clearer, and far more focused than before. Before you continue, tell me this: do you recognize this silent identity in yourself, or are you just discovering it now? Comment A if you're watching until the end so I can see who my real ultra-wise viewers are. And if 85% of you aren't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button so we can finally reach 1K and push this channel to the next level. Your support changes everything, and it keeps content like this alive for the people who need it most. They don't follow the hierarchy. They operate outside it. Sigma males never feel the need to climb a ladder that was built by someone else because they understand the true power doesn't come from standing at the top, it comes from choosing your own ground. They move through the world with a quiet certainty that confuses people who rely on titles, ranks, and social approval to feel important while others scramble for position. The Sigma steps back, studies the entire system, and realizes he doesn't need any of it to define who he is. This refusal to participate in the usual power games is not rebellion, it's clarity. It's the understanding that the moment you chase a hierarchy, you also accept its limits. So instead, he creates his own rules, his own standards, his own direction. This mindset shows up in the smallest decisions and the biggest transformations. He works when he chooses. He connects only when energy aligns, and he never forces himself into spaces where he doesn't belong. He has no need to impress anyone, compete with anyone, or prove superiority, because his confidence is internal, not borrowed from the opinions of others. People sense this difference immediately. That unusual calm, that grounded presence, that lack of desperation. It's intimidating to some and inspiring to others because it exposes how much noise the rest of the world makes trying to be seen. The Sigma doesn't try to be seen. He simply exists with such quiet certainty that people cannot ignore him. Operating outside the hierarchy gives him a unique advantage: freedom. Freedom to change paths without permission. Freedom to walk away without fear. Freedom to choose solitude when others fear silence. He becomes unpredictable, not because he hides, but because he is not controlled by external pressure. This is why Sigma males rise in ways no one expects. They don't play the game, so they can't lose the game. They build their life like a lone architect, designing a structure no one else has the blueprint for. And when the world finally notices what he has become, it realizes too late that the man who refused to compete was never behind. He was already on a completely different level, shaping a destiny untouched by hierarchy, untouched by expectation, and completely ruled by his own quiet power. Their independence is not rebellion, it's their natural state. Sigma males don't separate themselves from others to make a statement or to appear different. They do it because their inner world has always been their anchor. Independence is not a defense mechanism, not an attitude, not a performance. It is the environment in which they think clearly, feel deeply, and understand themselves without interruption. They don't step away from crowds to rebel. They step away because solitude sharpens them. It gives them room to breathe, room to observe, room to evolve, without the noise of expectations pressing against their identity. From a young age, they sense that following the crowd bends their authenticity, so they instinctively choose the quieter path, not as an act of defiance, but as an act of alignment with who they truly are. This natural independence shapes everything about them: how they love, how they work, how they move through life. They don't seek constant validation or emotional reassurance because their self-worth doesn't come from external hands. They know how to stand alone without collapsing, and they trust their own judgment even when the world pulls in 100 different directions. People often mistake this for arrogance or coldness, but it's neither. It is simply self-trust, the kind that comes from hearing your own thoughts clearly rather than drowning in the opinions that surround you. When others fear being alone with themselves, the Sigma finds clarity in that silence. When others search for direction from the crowd, the Sigma carries his compass within. Their independence becomes even more powerful as they age. The older they get, the more they refine who they allow into their life, not out of fear but out of precision. They don't need a large circle, they need real ones. They don't need noise, they need truth. They don't need attention, they need freedom of movement. The ability to choose, to walk away, to rebuild, to start again without permission. This is why Sigma males transform quietly but dramatically. Their independence allows them to outgrow environments that keep others stuck. They evolve because nothing holds them in place. Not expectations, not relationships, not society's pressures. And by the time people realize how powerful this natural solitude has made them, the Sigma has already shifted into a version of himself that no one saw coming, guided not by rebellion, but by the deep, unwavering instinct to remain true to who he is. They stay unpredictable because they're not driven by ego. Sigma males don't move with the crowd's expectations or act out of a need to be admired, understood, or praised. Their decisions come from internal logic, not from the urge to prove themselves. This is why people can never anticipate their next move. The Sigma isn't chasing attention, power displays, or emotional reactions. He doesn't perform for approval or adjust his choices to impress anyone. His unpredictability isn't the strategy. It is the natural result of living by inner values instead of external noise. When ego is not the engine, every action flows from authenticity, not performance, and that alone makes him impossible to manipulate or predict. Most men reveal their intentions through their desire to be seen, respected, or validated, but the Sigma moves differently. He can walk away from arguments that others would escalate, not because he's weak, but because he gains nothing from proving a point. He can disappear from situations where most men would try to dominate, because dominance means nothing to someone who doesn't need an audience. This calm detachment confuses people who rely on ego battles to understand male behavior. They expect competition, aggression, or pride, but the Sigma responds with silence, clarity, or unexpected choices that don't fit the script. His strength doesn't come from reacting, it comes from observing, deciding internally, and then acting when the moment truly matters. This lack of ego-driven behavior makes him incredibly adaptive. While others trap themselves trying to maintain an image, the Sigma evolves freely. He changes direction when needed, cuts ties without theatrics, and reinvents himself without asking for applause. He's not tied to who he was last year, last month, or even last week. His identity is fluid because it's not built on status or reputation, it's built on growth. This makes him dangerous in the eyes of those who want predictability, because they cannot control a man who has nothing to prove and no identity tied to external validation. The more life tests him, the more this unpredictability becomes a quiet superpower. He chooses peace over pride, solitude over approval, action over argument. People only understand his pattern when they realize there isn't one. He follows the inner voice that ego cannot influence. And by the time they try to decode him, the Sigma has already moved on, already transformed, already out of reach. His unpredictability isn't mystery for the sake of mystery. It is freedom, the kind that only exists when a man's actions belong to himself and no one else. They walk alone, not out of weakness, but out of clarity. Sigma males choose solitude because it is the only place where their thoughts are not diluted, their instincts are not questioned, and their identity is not shaped by the expectations of others. They do not distance themselves because they fear closeness, nor because they struggle to connect. They distance themselves because they see too clearly what drains them and what strengthens them. Walking alone gives them a level of mental sharpness and emotional control that crowds cannot provide. When they step away, they're not escaping people, they're returning to themselves. And in that return, they rediscover their direction, their standards, and their inner truth, with a level of clarity most people never experience. This choice to walk alone often confuses those who cling to companionship for comfort. They mistake the Sigma's silence for sadness, his solitude for isolation, his independence for emotional coldness. But they misunderstand the intention. The Sigma isn't rejecting the world, he's filtering it. He's choosing to engage only with what aligns with his deeper values, not with what temporarily fills time or space. In solitude, he sees through fake friendships, one-sided connections, and environments where he feels unseen. He understands that being surrounded by people, yet disconnected from himself, is the real form of loneliness. So instead, he prefers the path where his thoughts are steady, his energy is protected, and his intuition becomes louder than the world's noise. Walking alone also gives him a kind of emotional power few men possess. Without constant external influence, he forms his own worldview. Without being shaped by group pressure, he discovers who he is without performance or compromise. And without seeking validation, he learns how to rely entirely on his own strength. This makes him deeply grounded, even in chaos. He moves with quiet precision because he's not pulled in 1,000 directions. He knows when to advance, when to retreat, when to connect, and when to disappear into the shadows to rebuild. Every step is intentional, every decision rooted in inner truth, rather than external opinions. By the time others realize why he walks alone, the Sigma has already transformed into someone far stronger, clearer, and more self-delighted than they expected. His solitude is not a retreat, it's a forge. It shapes him into a man who cannot be pressured, manipulated, or derailed. And when he finally chooses to walk beside someone, it's not because he needs them, but because they meet him at the level of clarity he fought so hard to build. They attract respect without demanding it. Sigma males never ask for recognition, never raise their voice to be heard, and never force their presence to be felt. Yet people notice them instantly. Their respect comes not from dominance, status, or loud confidence, but from the quiet steadiness they carry everywhere they go. They move with intention, speak only when necessary, and observe with a depth that makes others unconsciously straighten their posture around them. This effortless influence happens because they're rooted in self-control rather than ego. They don't need to convince anyone of their worth. They live it. And when a man walks through the world with that level of internal stability, respect follows him, like a shadow he never has to chase. Their power shows in how little they react to provocation, how calmly they handle pressure, and how they never compromise their identity just to fit into a room. While others try to be liked, admired, or approved of, the Sigma keeps his standards quietly intact. He doesn't flatter, doesn't compete, doesn't perform. People respect this because it's rare. A man who refuses to play the social game, yet still carries undeniable presence. The Sigma becomes the person others look to during chaos, the one whose silence carries more authority than someone else's shouting, the one whose minimal words hold more weight than someone else's long speeches. He earns trust through consistency, calmness, and the refusal to betray himself for acceptance. And what makes that respect even stronger is that the Sigma doesn't depend on it. He doesn't rise or fall based on who approves of him. This independence makes people lean in more, not less, because they can feel that he's unshakable. They sense that his values aren't negotiable, that his boundaries are real, that his presence isn't for show. Even those who don't understand him still feel compelled to acknowledge him, because his energy carries a quiet authority built from discipline and self-awareness. He becomes a mirror that exposes who others are, and that alone makes them treat him differently. By the time people realize why they respect him, it's already instinctive. They admire the way he moves alone without insecurity, the way he speaks without fear, the way he stands firm without aggression. Respect comes to him naturally because he embodies something most try to imitate but cannot sustain: inner strength without performance. He doesn't demand it, chase it, or negotiate for it. He simply becomes the man whose presence commands it. This is they observe everything but reveal almost nothing. Sigma males move through the world with eyes that absorb details most people never register. The tone behind a sentence, the tension in a room, the shift in someone's energy, the motives hiding beneath polite words. They notice patterns long before others understand what's happening, and they collect information quietly without drawing attention to their awareness. Their observation is not passive, it's strategic. They watch to understand, not to judge. They study people's intentions, not their performances. And because they reveal so little of their own thoughts, no one ever knows how much the Sigma has already figured out. This contrast, deep perception, paired with guarded expression, makes them unpredictable, unreadable, and incredibly hard to manipulate. Their silence is not emptiness, it is calculation. While others expose their insecurities through oversharing, bragging, or reacting emotionally, the Sigma keeps his inner world locked behind a controlled exterior. He doesn't rush to express opinions, doesn't reveal weaknesses, and doesn't hand out pieces of his identity to people who haven't earned trust. He understands that the more others know about you, the easier it becomes for them to control you, so he keeps his cards close. Instead of talking, he listens. Instead of proving himself, he evaluates. Instead of assuming, he reads the truth between the lines. This makes him immune to many of the traps that catch other men, because he sees them forming long before they reach him. And the more he observes without revealing, the more powerful his intuition becomes. He can sense when someone is lying, because the story doesn't match the energy. He can detect hidden agendas, because he's trained himself to notice what people try to hide. He can walk away from danger before it appears, because he recognizes the early patterns others ignore. His mind becomes a map of quiet intelligence, stitched together from moments no one realized he was paying attention to. People underestimate him because he doesn't announce his insights, but it's exactly that silence that gives him the upper hand. By the time others realize how deeply the Sigma understands them, it's already too late for pretense. They see their own reflection in his calm eyes, and it unsettles them. He has read their intentions, weighed their character, and predicted their next moves without saying a word. This ability to observe without revealing creates a mysterious gravitational pull. People feel drawn in, yet exposed at the same time, and the Sigma walks forward unchanged, guarded, self-aware, and always 3 steps ahead, carrying a truth no one else can access, except him. They create their own path instead of competing on someone else's. Sigma males never feel the urge to run the same race everyone else is running because they understand something most people never realize. When you compete on someone else's path, you limit yourself to someone else's vision. They refuse to let society, trends, expectations, or old rules decide their direction. Instead of squeezing themselves into a system that doesn't reflect who they are, they step back, look at the bigger landscape, and carve a road no one has walked before. This instinct is not rebellion, it's intuition. They know they were not designed to mimic, chase, or outdo. They were designed to build. And when a man creates instead of competes, he becomes impossible to compare, impossible to outrank, and impossible to replace. While others chase benchmarks, status symbols, and the approval that comes from winning, the Sigma quietly constructs a reality that feels right to him. He doesn't care who's ahead or behind, because he isn't measuring his life in comparison to anyone else's. He is driven by purpose, not pressure, by vision, not rivalry. This gives him a unique kind of power. Freedom. Freedom to change direction without explaining himself. Freedom to evolve without permission. Freedom to succeed without performing for an audience. His path may look strange to others at first, unpredictable, slow, non-linear, but it's built from a place of authenticity that makes every step stronger than 1,000 steps taken in imitation. This refusal to compete also protects his energy in a world obsessed with proving itself. The Sigma doesn't waste time fighting for attention in crowded spaces because he knows crowded spaces signal borrowed dreams. He prefers to start from silence, from imagination, from the raw place where ideas aren't influenced by comparison. And that is why his growth often shocks people. They didn't see him grinding under a spotlight or announcing his goals to be admired. He builds in private, then unveils something refined, powerful, and entirely his own. By the time others realize how far he's gone, he's already moved again, evolving faster than they can track, because his momentum comes from internal fire, not external competition. When a Sigma creates his own path, it becomes a landscape only he can walk, a direction only he understands, a destiny crafted by his own hands rather than shaped by society's blueprint. He doesn't rise by outdoing others, he rises by outgrowing the need to compare. And that is why his success feels different. It's not noisy, not desperate, not reactive. It's sovereign. It's chosen. It's built from a life that belongs entirely to him. Their silence is not emptiness, it's controlled power. Sigma males don't use silence to hide weakness or avoid reality. They use it to maintain command over their thoughts, emotions, and presence. Their silence is a deliberate space where clarity grows, where impulses settle, and where truth becomes visible without the distortion of noise. While others rush to fill every quiet moment with opinions, reactions, and nervous chatter, the Sigma remains still, not because he has nothing to say, but because he refuses to speak without purpose. That calm silence becomes its own form of influence. It makes people lean in, wonder, adjust their behavior, and sense that they're standing in front of someone who doesn't need volume to project strength. His silence is restraint. His silence is focus. His silence is authority, shaped in the shadows, not the spotlight. This controlled power shows itself in the moments when others lose balance. When people are provoked, the Sigma doesn't explode. He evaluates. When people panic, he analyzes. When people gossip or argue to appear dominant, he stays unmoved, letting their noise expose their insecurities while his silence protects his position. The less he reacts, the more powerful he becomes. People expect emotional displays, defensive words, or aggressive counterattacks, but the Sigma gives them nothing. That refusal to be pulled into chaos shifts the dynamic completely. It makes others question themselves, rethink their behavior, and sense the weight of someone who cannot be manipulated into revealing what he doesn't want to show. His silence becomes a shield and a sword at the same time. And beneath that silence is a mind always working, always observing, always connecting patterns with precision. The Sigma speaks only after he has understood the full picture. And when he finally chooses to speak, his words land with impact because they come from intention instead of impulse. People remember what he says because he doesn't say much, and that scarcity gives his voice a gravity others can't imitate. His silence amplifies his presence, making him the kind of man whose stillness demands more attention than someone else's shouting. It is the quiet confidence of someone who knows his power, who doesn't need to display it, and who only uses it when the moment calls for it. By the time people realize the depth of his silence, they understand it was never emptiness. It was discipline. It was self-mastery. It was the space where he built the strength others only pretend to have. Sigma males don't wield silence as a void. They wield it as a force that keeps them unshakable, unreadable, and in control, long after the noise around them has collapsed under its own weight. In the end, the Sigma male's power isn't loud, flashy, or performed for attention. It's built quietly in the moments no one sees. It's shaped in solitude, sharpened through clarity, and strengthened by a deeper understanding of himself than the world ever expects. If you recognized even a piece of yourself in these truths, then you're already walking a path most people will never understand. And that path only gets clearer the more you grow, the more you detach from noise, and the more you trust the silent strength inside you. Now tell me this, which part of the Sigma identity resonates with you the most, and why? Your answer helps me understand my real, ultra-wise community. If you watched until the end, comment the word unseen so I know you're one of the viewers who stays with me all the way through. And don't forget, 85% of you are watching but not subscribed. Hit that subscribe button so we can reach 1K faster and push this channel into the growth it deserves. Your support is the reason UltraWise keeps rising.